Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
Hey, it's Funk Roberts here, and welcome to episode number 179 of the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. Again, I'm your host, and today we're going to go into a deep dive into the most cutting-edge conversations that we've ever had on this show. In fact, if you're a man over 40, 50, 60 or beyond who's serious about longevity, who's serious about performance, who's serious about recovery and also hormone optimization, you're going to want to pay attention to what you're about to hear, because my guest today and what you're about to hear is not only the world leader or a world leader in regenerative and anti-aging medicine, but also she's literally changing the way high performers, athletes, and just the everyday man like you and me, changing the way we're rebuilding bodies, brains from the inside out. And I'm talking about Dr. Joy Kong, MD. Dr. Kong and I had this incredible conversation. She's a triple board certified anti-aging physician, a pioneer in the stem cell therapy, and the founder of Chara Health, which I hope to be visiting soon to get some stem cells in my lower back, but that's for another conversation. The other thing about Dr. Kong is she's named Stem Cell Doctor of the Year and Doctor of the Decade, and she's trained and continues to train doctors from around the world. And in this episode, we talk about stem cells. So kind of break down exactly what stem cells are, recovery and how it helps with recovery, the type of stem cells, the procedure that goes through stem cells and the procedure that you get when you go for to get stem cells. And of course, we break down the different types of stem cells, because maybe in the past you've heard about embryonic stem cells, or maybe you've heard about fetal stem cells, but we're not talking about those two. We're talking about another one that is natural and helps activate your body's healing systems without any pills or without any therapy or without any surgery. Listen, this is science you can use right now, right? You can use this. This is one of those things that I always say to people, like the reason why we want to live longer, the reason why we want to make sure that we're as healthy as possible is because we are in the age now where we have the opportunity to truly live into our hundreds and still be healthy, still be able to do burpees. And I know that it's very difficult for people to think about, but the advancements in technology, the advancements in science, the advancements in medicine, now even AI, that starts to give us more and more opportunities to live healthier, to live longer. Aside from training harder, recovering faster, slowing the aging process so that we can live healthier. And so with advances like stem cells, which our parents never had an opportunity to have access to, we do now. And we don't have to be kings, queens, rich, exorbitant amount of money. It's available for us, but we still have to do our research. We still have to get the right information. I think bringing Dr. Kong on will start to give you, and by the end of this, you will have a lot of hard information on understanding what stem cells are, the different types of stem cells, the ones that are probably the best for us, but other forms of stem cells, how it happens, and why it's so important for recovery, joint health, brain fog, anti-aging, chronic health issues, cancer in some cases, testosterone, and everything else that we want to optimize as we get older. So this episode will change the way you think about aging, will change the way you think about performance, and hopefully will change the way, in a positive way, what you think about stem cells. So sit back, relax, grab a protein shake, and get ready for Dr. Joy Kong, MD, and Funkster to talk about stem cells. Enjoy the podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to someone who is actually redefining what's possible for us guys in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, especially when it comes to staying strong and youthful and pain-free, mentally sharp, specifically when all of the other guys around us are slowing down. And Dr. Joy Kong, MD, is a triple board certified anti-aging physician, a stem cell therapy expert, award-winning speaker, author, and founder of Chara Health. But the big thing here is she was named Stem Cell Doctor of the Year and doctor of the decade and has trained doctors globally and is known for translating the complex science around stem cells and everything else into real actionable advice. So I've been waiting for this conversation, excited about this conversation for a long time, especially in the world of stem cells, of course, recovery, inflammation. We'll talk hormones, but I'm really excited to welcome and thank you to welcoming Dr. Joy Kong. Dr. Joy, thank you for being here.
Yes. Thank you so much, Funk. First of all, did your parents really name you Funk?
My parents named me Mark, but 20 years ago, I decided that, for branding's sake, I would call myself Funk Roberts, and my parents, and I would do it so much that my kids call me Funk, my wife calls me Funk, my parents call
Really?
me Funk, everybody calls me Funk.
That's
So I
it.
really leaned into the branding. Half the world knows me as Funk from
Amazing.
20 years plus, and before it was Mark. Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. I mean, I was like, did I read that right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Everyone knows me as Funk, but
I take that on.
Let's talk
Yes.
about you. Yeah, let's talk about, so first I want to talk about stem cells, really and truly. For men over 40, we're focused on recovery. We're focused on vitality and performance. Even me, I've got some injuries. What are stem cells?
Okay. I always go back to the beginning, which is when we were conceived. So when your mom and dad decided to create life, the sperm and egg, when they meet, there's a spark of light and there's a biological reset process. And now the first stem cell is produced. That's making for each individual, right? So we each came from that single stem cell. And when that stem cell started to divide and move around and start forming structures and start to specialize, they're all stem cells during this process until they form the cells of the organ. Your heart is the end working cell. That's a heart muscle cell. Your liver has the liver cell, right? Your nerve, neurons, etc. So until they become the end organ working cell, they're all stem cells. So when people talk about stem cells, it's not like there's a single kind of cells that's called stem cells. Literally 1,000 shades of gray. So anywhere along the line, the cell is a stem cell. So what does that mean? It means it can replicate itself, make a copy of itself, but at the same time can divide into another copy that's differentiated. That means gaining some function. So it always replenishes itself, but then further gaining function. So if you can intercept anywhere along the way, you can take that cell because that cell has all these potentials. Now you can utilize that potential to grow different tissue cells, right? That's really what we care about. We want working cells for different organs. So then those are the cells that we capture and utilize. And that can be anywhere along the lineage. And their potentials are all different. So all the stem cells are different. There's no uniform, a single, but within each category, like mesenchymal stem cell, which is the most well-known right now, that has its own characteristic. So each type of stem cell does have its own capabilities, but even among mesenchymal stem cell, that's widely used everywhere. If you obtain it from different sources, they're all different. So we characterize these stem cells, we can recognize them by surface markers. So we can put them in using antibodies, we can detect the markers just because they all have the same markers showing that they qualify as mesenchymal stem cells. Doesn't mean that they're all the same. So they could be coming from the bone marrow of somebody or the fat tissue of somebody else. They could be coming from the umbilical cord blood or even other tissues in the same umbilical cord. Could be coming from the cord tissue, which is mostly Wharton's jelly, or amniotic membrane. So all these different sources for the mesenchymal stem cells, in short, MSCs, they are different in their abilities, in their capability of differentiation, as far as how wide their capabilities are, and their growth factor profiles. So they're all different, and we can utilize different subpopulations to help a particular purpose of healing.
Okay. So stem cells, that's kind of like the umbrella, I guess. Like, I mean, when I say umbrella, because there's so many different types of stem cells. So that's number one. There's different types. And each stem cell, like each type of stem cell probably has even differentiators underneath that because it depends on where you're getting it, who you're getting it from, and
Right.
whatever else I guess is happening. So stem cells on a whole come from us. And so as we get older, and I'm going to come back to the whole stem cell thing, but as we get older, why are stem cells so important? Let's talk about that. Why are they so important specifically as we're getting older?
Well, first of all, it has the blueprint for life, but all cells have blueprints, but a lot of the blueprints in your working cell have been shut down. So it doesn't have as many capabilities. So it just knows how to work in that tissue. But these younger cells up the lineage have a lot more potentials. And certain cells not only have the potential to differentiate, becoming a working cell themselves, but they have the ability to signal. So they send signals throughout your body. That's what mesenchymal stem cells are known for. They are signaling molecules. So much so that the inventor or the discoverer of mesenchymal stem cells, Dr. Kaplan, wanted to rename it medicinal signaling cells because he said, no, stop emphasizing on them being stem cells. They're really signaling cells. They're throughout the body. Just to give you the statistic, when we were born, every 1 in 10,000 cells is a mesenchymal stem cell. But when we reach our teenage years, it has already become 1 in 100,000. So it's tenfold less, right, as far as the ratio. And when we reach our 40s, it becomes 1 in 400,000. And when we reach our 80s, is 1 in 2 million. So literally, if you look at a curve, it is a cliff. It just goes straight down. So there's a drastic decline in our ability to regenerate. And you can see that in how fast we heal a cut, right? Something as simple as having a cut. In the past, you knew it should be within days, everything's gone, right? But as you get older, why is it still there? So it's because your body can't keep up. It just is more sluggish. So that's what happens. And if you don't have the signal to repair, then all your organ is functioning at a lower level. And the disease state is not corrected adequately, including cancer. If our immune system, which is one sort of organ system, if they're not up to par, then any emerging cells will continue to thrive. We know living itself triggers cancer growth because just the oxidative damage, just being alive, things can go wrong and DNA can go awry. So if you don't have a robust immune system, then the cells can just, basically form a much more formidable type of condition. So the key is allowing your body to receive those signals again. So I kind of liken it to like a TV set. And when we get older and older is more and more pixelated. So you can't see it very well. It's like, geez, what is it saying, right? When it becomes really pixelated, then when it's really bad, you can't read it at all. I don't have no idea what's on the screen. So your body just stops. You just, right? That's toward the end. But even when it's just a little bit more pixelated, it just is harder to see. So what stem cells can do is literally giving you high def of what your cells need to know. All of a sudden the cells, oh, okay, that's what I need to do. There's a clear path forward. And now you're awakened. That's why we're seeing people with sharp increasing energy, right? In mental clarity and improved sleep and aches and pains going away rapidly. Like I just trained almost 40 doctors at a academy. I founded an academy. I train physicians. And we provided some stem cell treatment during the training. And already the next day, this one doctor said, yeah, my aches and pains are gone. So it can happen that fast is because your body all of a sudden is seeing what it needs to do.
That's amazing. And so again, I'm just gonna keep prodding here. So the stem cell,
Please do.
the role of the stem cell, right? If like, when we're born or when we're young, it's 1 in 10,000. Is the role of the stem cell, or one of the main roles, the signaling, making sure that everything is working, all the other cells or other stem cells are are working in regards to the recovery piece. Like you said, when you cut ourselves or when we get injured or what have you, back when we were younger, we healed much faster, right? Because I guess the stem cells were more powerful. Like
That's
what is that role?
they were
Okay,
more
that's it.
abundant and they were more active. So the mesenchymal
Okay.
stem cells will give you the signals, but in each of your tissue, let's say your muscles, or I see a lot of muscles
Yeah.
there, your muscles have muscle specific stem cells. So they're helping you
Right.
making more muscle cells. So, but
Mm,
these mesenchymal stem cells have the ability to talk to your muscle stem cells because for some people, the muscle stem cells just sit there really not doing anything because their whole body,
mm,
like the pixelation, right, is not clear. They're not sure what to do. So they're stagnating. But these mesenchymal stem cells can go in there. What they do is really cool because they always are huddling around the blood vessels. So anytime when they sense things that are wrong in some place, let's say you tore a tendon. So that tendon is sending out this screaming inflammation signals. And that signal, which is manifested by certain cytokines and etc., these little chemical molecules. And those signals can be flowing through the blood. And your mesenchymal stem cell that's holding on to blood vessels can feel or can sense the chemical signals in the blood. And when they sense it, they squeeze themselves into the blood vessel and start swimming upstream to find where the signal is at. And once they get there, they get out. They get out, they start talking to local stem cells. They start to send signals back into the blood, sent to the immune system, immune cells to come over, let's grab some bad cells, kill off the cells that don't work and remove them. And then let's trigger the local stem cells to come alive and to start making new tissue. So that's kind of how it works. There the different types of stem cells. There's a variation still, even in adult body. We still have other types of stem cells, but the major types that we're utilizing would be more the mesenchymal stem cells and the end tissue specific stem cells.
okay, that's great. So yeah, so the role is very important actually because without the signals and without understanding, without having as many in the body to be able to capture when there's inflammation or sickness or sarcopenia is killing off the muscles. So we need to fight against sarcopenia. We need to whatever that is to help build muscle. That's really important. So as we're getting older, I'm assuming we're losing stem cells. Well, we must be losing stem cells because if we start from 1 in 10,000 and 1 in 100,000,
We are
we
losing
must be
them.
losing stem cells. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a way to naturally, without any type of stem cell surgery, like if I'm at the point now where I'm 56, so let's say I have 1 in 600 right now, right? Stem cells, 1 in 600,000. Is there any way that just without doing anything or maybe working out and eating healthy and doing all those things that more stem cells will
I
regenerate?
think you can trigger more stem cell replication. So you may be able to have more stem cells circulating your body. There are supplements like Stem Regen that we use in our clinic as well that triggers more stem cells to come out of bone marrow. Because if they're just sitting in the bone marrow, they're not helping anything.
Mm,
That's what happens to a lot of people. They have some cells in their bone marrow, but they're sick. So the early stem cell therapy is done by extracting cells from the bone marrow and then putting it back into the blood. So you think it's only in one person, right? But no, it's no good sitting in the bone marrow. You need to get it out, allow it to circulate. So in that sense, you're not really increasing the number of stem cells. You're just taking them from one place to another. You're letting them circulate. So the number are still going
oh,
to start, decline. That's no, there's no, doubt about that. And of course, when you take the cells out, when you activate them, they also are going to have a finite lifespan. So they're not going to live forever. And that means that you may end up decreasing your stem cell population. The cells can only divide so many times. So they
mm,
can't do it indefinitely. So if you keep taking some out, eventually you're going to run out of generations, right? That's why we humans, we do have a lifespan. And then there are certain other things I think can trigger more stem cell mobilization. I don't know if they're actually, so if you mobilize them, and get them to be more active. You can help them to be healthier. If you have a healthier lifestyle, your stem cells are going to be healthier. So I think a lot of things can trigger more replication. More replication, that means more regenerative power in the body. So, without injecting stem cells, it's mostly increasing the number that are around working, not so much increasing the number themselves. Yeah.
So the ones working though, like you mentioned, they're not going to be as strong, right? I'm assuming they're not going to be as strong if they've been sitting in bone marrow, because the lifespan is just like, as you're getting older, I'm sure their lifespan is also getting older,
Yeah,
right?
if
So,
anyone's interested, I have a whole 40-minute lecture specially designed to answer this question. So if you use cells from your own body versus using cells from something that's really young, like the umbilical cord, what's the
yes.
difference? Which way is better? So if you go through all the studies that I was showing people from all around the world, that people actually did direct comparisons in every
Mm,
parameter, whether or not is how much growth factors they can secrete or how old the cells are, illustrated by those senescent markers, or how many generations they have left, and how neuroprotective, and how anti-inflammatory, everything using a person's own falls behind. And not only that, when
right.
you use your own stem cells, there's another fact that can be concerning, quite concerning to me, because one of the only contraindications for, when certain doctors are doing stem cell therapy, that what they don't want to treat is people with existing cancer or has a recent history of cancer, because there
Mm,
has been reports of stem cells exacerbating cancer growth. Because if you have a
mm,
stem cell that has the ability to trigger growth, but has lost certain intelligence because a person's older, and that's what they found. When the cells are older, is losing abilities to recognize cancer. So instead of sending out signals to tell the cancer cells to die, it keeps
mm,
sending growth factors and telling everything to grow. So that's one problem. But the younger cells retain more of the capability of recognizing cancer, because directly, if you put fat-derived stem cells, mesenchymal stem cell, next to, in this particular study, next to this glioblastoma, right, very virulent form of brain cancer, you put it next to that tumor, either in petri dish or on a live animal's body, that tumor is going to grow and get bigger. But if you put
mm.
umbilical cord derived stem cells, very young cells, next to the cancer cells, the cancer start to shrink and go away. So that's how drastically different they are, even though they're all called MSCs. So yeah,
Right.
you really have to be careful what your sources are.
For sure. And so I'm assuming that the people, so sometimes I hear about stem cells in cancer and how it's bad for cancer. But what they're doing, whoever's reporting on this or writing on this, is most likely not bringing out the fact that it's the stem cells used or whatever is from that person's body already, which is why it's
Yeah,
exasperating the cancer as opposed to umbilical cord. But they kind of leave, how when
right.
people want to write stories or whatever, they'll leave out some of the important things so to focus on what they're trying to prove. So that's good news. That's good to
Yeah,
know that
there's no
that
evidence that umbilical cord stem cells is going to exacerbate cancer. Yeah, so
right,
it's
right.
it's an extremely safe source of stem cells.
I'm going to ask you about the source, but before I ask, there's people probably listening going, okay, so great. Now I know stem cells. I know that I'm losing my stem cells or they're getting weaker as I'm getting older. Of course, I'm getting, injuries. Maybe I have injuries. I have shoulder injury. I have a terrible back injury that has been with me for 5 years. And so a
Mm.
lot of guys have these little injuries and just other things, right? Energy, sleep, that sort of thing. Why should we be paying attention to stem cells? Like, why should this be something we perk our ears up versus, this is just a fad?
It is never, it's not, cat's out of the bag. Now we know that we have these microscopic little entities that are alive that we can put in the human body and help us heal. And we're never going to be able to turn back. This is revolutionary because we are borrowing intelligence. In the past, in medicine, we have used plants, or biochemical molecules that we design, and plants are just a collection of different molecules. But we never really utilized the design of our body to help us heal, right? The original blueprint that has all the information you need to make anything you want. Now we're using that intelligence to help the body heal. So in theory, it sounds amazing, right? Oh my God, we're borrowing the original design, but it means nothing if in practicality it doesn't work. So the beautiful
Right.
thing is that it actually works. And that's been proven by thousands and thousands of studies from around the world. Uh, you name it. Not every condition, but most major conditions, some less common conditions, no one is putting up the money to study. But for more common conditions, we've got plenty and plenty of studies. And that's what I was teaching the doctors, that
Mm.
don't think that this is just an idea. It's no longer just an idea. We actually have evidence
Mm.
that it actually
Okay.
works. So yeah, because it works, that's why yeah, it's profound and revolutionary, and it's here to stay.
Yeah, I agree. Like for me, I love science research. I was in neurology way back, in school neuroscience, and I worked in the neurology unit, people who had aphasia and apraxia. But now I'm more like I need to see and see like the proof. The proof is science research is great, but I want to see it in real people. And I also work with the UFC. And I've been working with the UFC for 10 years, a lot of the athletes. And, one of the biggest things that Dana White does for his athletes is if they have a insane injury, or even Joe Rogan sometimes talks about this, he'll send them down to, Central America, go get stem cells, and they're coming back and they feel better than ever. And this is not one-offs. This is like, oh yeah, I'm going
No.
to go get stem cells. I'm going to go get stem cells. I'm going to get stem cells. I'm going to get stem cells. And it's
Yeah.
working, right? It's bringing them back, specifically in a sport like that. So
Yeah.
I know personally that, not that I need to get stem cells, but I haven't yet. But I know
Everybody.
from the proof, right? I know from the proof. But again, it is something that's a little bit more expensive, but we're going to get to that in a second. I
Yeah.
want to
And I
back up
think
and
for
talk
any
about,
doctor who's not utilizing stem cells, they're really, really behind, and they are not doing justice for their patients. Because I can't tell you how many people I was able to get off medications and regain their life. I mean, it's just a Parkinson's patient. We just had, not
mm,
too long ago, a patient that was wheelchair bound for a couple of years. Now he's running on the beach, racing his son. I mean, things like that. When doctors dismiss it, saying, oh, that's just one anecdotal evidence. But show me that you can do this. I want to see your anecdotes. Show me what you have been able to do with your drugs.
mm,
So people really need to
mm,
wake up to what is going on in medicine. They can keep, bury their head in the sand, which I see a lot of doctors do. And I really hope
mm.
more wakes up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm thinking GPs, right? General practitioners, because that's where most people go to. In fact, everyone goes to them first, unless you're a little bit more advanced and you understand, you need specialists. But I'm assuming a lot of the general practitioners, specifically the older ones, are kind of like they don't want to leave that comfort, right? It's a comfort, something new. When new things come out, new technology, when you get older, you're just so against it. Like, nah, I don't need that. I don't need a computer. I don't need a cell phone. I don't need this, right? And I find that like even when, I was taking care of my father last year who had diabetes, and we were able to naturally reverse that diabetes through, nutrition and all the other things, lifestyle. But I remember going to the doctor, and they were older, and they would just be stuck in their way. Like, we're not going to do a testosterone test. Or do you feel sick, or do you feel tired? I'm like, no, I want to know his testosterone. We talked about cholesterol. We talked about all of these things where they just wanted to put him on statins. They just wanted to just kind of like, check the boxes of what they've been doing for the last 30 years. And I get it. Listen, the fear to change and kind of change things that have been set in their ways for 30 years. I get it's very difficult. It's difficult for people to change. So how difficult is it to get all of these GPs or and family doctors to kind of you know introduce stem cells therapy into their practice?
Okay. So but the majority of doctors went into medicine to help people. There is percentage that went there to make money. So it's true. But the majority want to help people. However, we're all humans. We all have limitations. So are you intellectually curious? Are you so overwhelmed by seeing patients 7 minutes per patient that you're so tapped out that you have absolutely no reserve to look into what else is new in science? And then when you do get your CMEs and trying to go to conferences, and the conferences are all controlled by big pharma. So everything you know will not only be restricted to these drugs, but they're going to also bash everything new. They're going to call it without evidence. Or pseudoscience. That's one of their favorite words. So unfortunately, that's what's happening for a lot of people. So we need people of intellectual curiosity. So I was one of those people. I was searching. And I didn't have illness. I didn't, it's not like something just woke me up. Oh my God, alternative form of treatments actually work. Of course, growing up in China, I already knew because my mom was saved from death by traditional Chinese medicine after conventional medicine failed. She was in the best tumor hospital in China. 6 months, everyone else was dying on the ward. And she finally just said, get me out of the hospital and let me do something different, drastically different. So she went to a Chinese medicine doctor, got this concoction of nasty tasting herbs. And then she drank that twice a day and did aerobics every morning. That's all she did. Within 6 months, she went back to work and she had a nice long life, right? Another 32 years of vibrant life. So that's my experience. So naturally, I grew up, without the prejudice against other forms of medicine. So I'm already open, but I'm searching for what else can I do? What else can I do for patients and for myself? Because I went to UCLA. We are, it's considered we're West Coast, Los Angeles. You think that we are pretty cutting edge and open-minded, but the amount of nutritional training I got, maybe half an hour. I mean, that's it. We don't know how to prevent diseases. We are completely unequipped. So I don't want to get sick. I want to live really well, but we don't know how to optimize. So if you're not sick, there's nothing we can do. It's just like, you're fine. You're nothing is wrong with you. No, I'm not feeling so great. But when they run tests, no, nothing's wrong with you. But that's not the right way of being a doctor, right? You can optimize, but we were not equipped to optimize. So in my search, I found functional medicine, anti-aging medicine, then stem cell therapy. But for a lot of providers I see, it's because either they themselves got sick or they have family members that got sick and they tried everything conventional, right? They went to all the specialists and somehow they were just not getting better. So what do you do when you have this drive to live? When you have this internal, this life force inside of you saying, I want to feel better. You search for everything else. And then when you did something else, all of a sudden you start to get better. And what do you think how they're going to feel, right? They're going to really look into these other forms of treating the body. And that's what happened to a lot of doctors, that they themselves had the experience. My God, there's something here. Let me look into it. Yeah. So the two types of doctors, one has to be woken up by real experience, sickness, and the other group are more open. But still, we are still in the minority, which makes this an exciting time, I guess, so that we, it's a beginning, not be relying on petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. There's just much better way to heal. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So that's great. Now let's get back to, I want to talk about where you get the stem cells. So, we keep hearing, umbilical, younger. Talk about the sources and the best sources for stem cells.
Yeah. So the way I look at it, your younger sources from either yourself, right? When you were first born, umbilical cord, if it's saved, that's phenomenal. Or from somebody else's who donate umbilical cord cells. So you can use that from very young sources. I'm not going to talk about fetal stem cells or embryonic stem cells. None of those are performed in the US. So those are not allowed for any clinical use. I think fetal, that's a whole other arena. Definitely not happening in the US. If it is, then it's illegal. I don't know anybody that does that. So then we're talking about umbilical cord, which means the baby is born, the baby is healthy, crying with mother and father, but you got to cut the cord, right? You got to, in the past, you would get the cord and placenta and toss them in the biological waste basket. But now we have procurement companies. Their specialty is to make sure that if the women are willing to donate, which I want to stress is a strict donation. There's no compensation. No one is selling tissue. So if they're willing to donate, now they can be collected, put in a normal saline bag and sent to a lab on ice to be processed. So that's the umbilical cord is a major source. And what's interesting was 9 years ago when I got into the first field, vast majority of the stem cell treatments were done using a person's own. So vast majority, more than 80%, was done using a person's own bone marrow or fat, really majority. And then only a 20%, a very tiny percentage was umbilical cord. But now the tide is completely shifted, which I saw. I was like, this is no brainer. Of course, the umbilical cord is more effective, has less potential to cause cancer, is more convenient. People can use it almost like medicine that I want to order this much. I want to have 5 cc's or whatever, 50 million cells and for this patient. And I want to use it once a month for, 4 months. So you can have regiment, right? Like any medical treatment, you have dose and frequency. So, because of that, the umbilical cord sector has blossomed. In 2018, 2028, 60% of the stem cell therapy will be conducted using umbilical cord stem cells, birth tissue stem cells. So, but people are still, there are camps of people. I know there are people who don't want to get other people's cells. I hear that all the time. And maybe what they don't realize is that they probably already have other people's cells in them. We know women, 60% of women actually have Y chromosomes in their body, and they can't account for that, because they had male children. So we already know that women with male children have Y chromosomes, but so many women have Y chromosomes in their body that they can detect, and they think it's because of sexual intercourse. So if you have sex, you probably have engaged in DNA exchange with another human. So it's not something that's extraordinary, that's outlandish. It's part of being a human. So I don't have any problem with it. I have gotten probably 40 stem cell treatment over the last 9 years because I do regular IV infusion every 3 months. So I've got lots of people's DNA in me, and I'm happily hosting them. I'm still me. I'm still, I haven't changed that much except for getting younger, but there's nothing to fear. That's what science is showing. So, so the source, I think the doctors who are still doing fat-derived stem cells, bone marrow-derived stem cells, one, there's a need for people who don't want to use other stem cell sources from another human. Two is these doctors have been using these methods for some time, and they've seen good results, and they believe in it. And also they've invested a lot of money to get trained, to get equipment, and it's hard to switch gear, right? So you have something that's working. Why stop using it? But when I got into the field, I had the luxury of seeing that umbilical cord stem cells are available. So I had to make a decision. Okay, what do I want to do? I need to devote my time and energy to something that's most effective and the safest for my patient. So it's not the other forms of stem cell therapy don't work, because you will hear people swear up and down that they work. But to what extent? Because it also did not work for a lot of people, especially when you're older or you're sick. So a lot of disease actually have stem cell involvement. The reason that you're staying at a diseased and chronic state is because your stem cells are defective. So you want to use younger, healthier, more vibrant cells. So I had the luxury of deciding what I wanted to do. And that's really, if I can give people 10% edge 10, 20% more effective, I'm going to go for it, right? Why settle on 50% recovery rather than 70%, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. No, I agree with you. And I think it just makes sense that the younger stem cell with the most potential would be the one you want to put into your body, as opposed to even using your own, specifically if you've been sick or you're not doing anything. But again, I know people, sometimes it's just that mental thing. We're human. We nothing will take out the spirit inside of you, whether you use someone else's stem cells or not. But you quickly talk.
Which is a vehicle. You heard about twins,
Exactly.
identical twins having very different personalities, right? Because the
Yes,
original
yes.
spirit source is different. So that's a whole other subject.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Maybe we'll get in the next podcast. Okay, you did mention other stem cells, like other sources. Can you just quickly go over those other sources? Because for people listening, they may be hearing about this other source and want to know what's the difference. So we know what the umbilical cord. I like that one actually because A, it's more accessible, but B, like you said, it's not the embryo. It's actually the umbilical cord that when a mother says, yes, I want to donate it, then we know that it's been, signed off on, donated, and preserved for stem cell therapy. But what were the other ones that you mentioned before?
Yeah,
Pheno and
so there are actually, if you look around the world, there are all kinds of stem cell therapy. There are even people who are
okay.
using sheep cells and rabbit cells, which
Oh,
I don't really, yeah, I don't really agree with because I think we have perfectly good human cells. There's no reason to use cells from other species. But, but besides that, people are using, I mentioned embryonic stem cells and fetal stem cells. And of course, it's not legal in this country, but people are, for example, fly to Ukraine to get fetal stem cells. Unfortunately, I heard about the process of the donation, which is not very encouraging. A lot of Russian women at the border, I mean, they were getting pregnant on purpose so that they could sell the fetus that they abort. So, and yeah, so that's a whole other subject. I don't, yeah, there's issues with that. But as far as more ethical sources, um, commonly used bone marrow, fat derived from an adult person. You can also use menstrual blood. You can use dental pulp. So those are some common sources, but the really widely used ones will be from the bone marrow or from fat. So from the bone marrow, you drill into the bone, usually at the hip. It's not a minor procedure. If you ever tried to drill into a bone, it's, yeah, and the healing also takes a long time. So you're taking out the bone marrow. As we get older, our bone marrow changes. It goes from red to yellow. It's get more fatty instead of having the more viable cells. So, you can drill cells out of there, or you can do a mini liposuction. And then you just, you get cells, not from the fat. You don't care about the fat cells. What you trying to get is the blood vessels that are supplying the fat cells. And all along those blood vessels are cells, especially mesenchymal stem cells. So you can centrifuge them down and separate them into different layers, and the cells are at the bottom. That's what you want. So those are the two major sources. Also, another source, really, it's also umbilical cord based, but it's drastically different from what we do in the U.S. So you see all these athletes and celebrities going overseas. What they're getting is
mhm.
expanded umbilical cord stem cells, usually. So expansion means you're putting the cells in some kind of container, and then you put in an incubator to let them grow. You put some kind of medium to
Mm.
help them grow. The problem is that when you start to do that, even one passage, cells can start to change. And we know their potency drastically decline if it goes over 4 passages. So not only they are changing their genetic expression, they're also
Mm.
secreting inflammatory molecules. And in addition, they start to gain function because when cells are stressed in an environment like that, they can start to want to specialize. So that's their response to stress, that they want to gain some function so they can do something, right? Instead of being a blank
Right,
cell,
right.
doesn't have much function. So when you
Totally.
start to go toward a working cell, you can only work by having more proteins. So if you express more
Mm.
proteins, that's how the cells function, to perform certain function. But the moment you start to express proteins that are identical to the donor, which could be very different from the recipient, now your recipient could attack your cells, or even these cells could
Right,
attack
right.
the recipient, right? So now you've got
Mm.
a reaction. This is why, unfortunately, we're getting a lot of information from celebrities about stem cells, which is not really accurate a lot of times. Tony Robbins
Mm.
is telling everybody, oh yeah, the stem cells work amazing, but you're going to get this thing called cytokine storm, and it's nothing to worry about. You just feel really crummy for a few days, but then you're going to get this incredible benefit. It's because he was using expanded stem cells. I've
Oh,
never
okay.
seen cytokine
Right.
storm in my clinic ever. It's just, if you don't expand the cells, you're not going to trigger that kind of reaction. But that reaction is
Um,
very common overseas. So these are
if-
things that people need to consider when it comes to source.
yeah, I think when someone hears something from a Tony Robbins and they don't hear the expanded stem cells, they just hear stem cells in general. Yeah, they're literally going to think that that's part of the process. So it is really important to know exactly the source and what happens when you get it from a specific source. So we're talking umbilical cord. Well, let's take us through the procedure. So let's say that because I do want to get stem cells in my back,
Mm-hmm.
because I've had injuries and I'm getting ablations right now, burning the
Ablation.
nerve. But yeah, but it's burning the nerve, but it's okay, but it's not, it's maybe giving me 20%. And at first maybe 40%, and then now it's 20%. So I'm almost not back to where I was before, but I'm getting there. So I'm not sure if stem cells can help that. But if I was to come
Oh,
and get
yeah,
that, what
with
would be
people
the
with
procedure?
chronic, severe back pain for decades,
Okay.
getting
Okay.
incredible relief, function drastic. For example, our recent patient, from barely being able to walk from the house to the garage,
Mm.
inside the house to the garage, to after stem cell therapy within days, getting on a long flight to Europe, walking all over the place in England and France, and withstand the flight all the way back, right? Long hours with no problem. And this is an older gentleman in his 60s. He said, this is a miracle. This is just incredible. Yeah. So I've seen just really incredible things we can do.
So what is the procedure?
The procedure starts from a thorough evaluation, of course. And for a lot of people with chronic issues, it's because they don't have enough regenerative potential throughout their body. It's not just a local tissue. That's your canary in coal mine. That's where the weakest link is showing you. But really, your whole body is not keeping up. Your immune system should have sent the right cells and get over there and get those local cells to start to repair and calm the inflammation. But the inflammation is persisting, which means your immune system has not been able to mount this repair. So then we always address, if it's a chronic issue, we prefer to address from a systemic point of view, in addition to addressing local pathology. So I would advise everybody to do IV infusion as part of the therapy. So for you, we'll determine the dose on your body weight, your age, and your overall health issues. If you have any chronic conditions, like people have diabetes or hypertension or history of whatever heart disease, then we're going to add a higher dose, because that means your body is really struggling more and you have more tissue to repair. So then we determine on IV dose, and then we determine whether or not we need to address the local area. So for joints, any joints in the body or the back, then we may add additional stem cells, and we can add that with different matrix material with a high growth factor content, put them together and inject into the local area. But we also want to promote the local tissue to triggers its tendency to heal and kind of bring them up to speed. And how do we do that? We can agitate them using really high-end shockwave therapy for some of the local tissue. And we can also
Mm.
attract and activate the cells using laser. So in our clinic, and if you come to our clinic, we're going to do both. We're going to activate the area with shockwave, because that gets local cells kind of woken up, and they start to secrete signals and track more cells. And the cells, once the signal is obvious, the cells will know better what to do. So more will stay, and they will know what to do. And then they're going to mount a much more effective response. And the laser has its own therapeutic properties because it elevates your mitochondrial function. It produces this cascade of effects from photobiomodulation. That's a whole other new area of medicine. I think we're just at the very beginning, but the results are really incredible. So I always utilize that laser in our treatment. So it's not just give you stem cells and we're done. There's more things that we can do. And then there are supplements we give you to maximize your blood flow, your number of circulating stem cells, and the amino acids for you to have building blocks to make new cells, to make new peptides, new enzymes, everything, right? You need the building blocks. And we give you something that give you all the trace minerals and helps your body detoxify. So you want to cleanse your body as well. So it's kind of the combination. And we also give you peptides to further accelerate. So for someone like you, we'll definitely give you BPC 157 and TB 500. Those are incredible for musculoskeletal healing. But at the same time, they also help with brain health, immune health, heart health, gut health. So these two are just covering lots of ground, and we tend to add those for people who come in. Does that give you a good understanding of what we do?
Sure. So how long does that procedure? So like, I'm from Toronto.
We also
so
do
I
ozone
fly down.
therapy. Forgot to mention. So before you get stem cells, actually at our clinic, we give you hydrogen water. We put in a really incredible frequency light bed, all to elevate your regenerative, your potential. Your body is awake and ready to go. And then we give you ozone therapy, which give you a lot of oxygen plus the ozonides from the ozone gas. Those boost your immune system and make your red blood cells more flexible. And so all of a sudden your body just more primed to get to work. Yeah, so that's the whole regimen. The whole process with the the light bed, the ozone therapy, the IV therapy, and the local injections. That one is going to take about 2.5 hours. Maybe up to 3 hours.
Okay, so it's a 3-hour process. I love the fact that there's the prep work or whatever you guys call it, but like to wake up the body, because a lot of times you're just going in. Like I know when I get my ablations done, I guess maybe that's the way it goes, but I'm just like, okay, you ready? And then, they put me on the bed, they shift me in, and then there's like 8 doctors putting big, needles in the back and, looking at the screen. Okay, right, a little bit to the left. Yeah, a little bit, and then I'm gone. Right. It's like, but I guess that's how it's done. I'm not knocking it at all, but I like the fact that
it's single-minded.
Yeah, I like right. I like the fact that there's that waking up and trying to optimize the ability for the stem cell and other stem cells to do what it needs to do.
We're optimizing the soil for you so the seeds can flourish.
100%. So I like that. So 3 hours. And then after the 3 hours are done, how long will this last? How many times do I have to come back and get this done?
So this is always a question. Is like, why? Okay, first of all, if it's just a sports injury and the person is otherwise healthy, and if we fix your injury, then you're fixed, right? You don't have to come back. It should be fixed unless you're injured again. But we all decline, as we all know. There's a train that keeps going, right? No one has been able to stop that train and not die.
Brian Johnson.
Not yet. So that process is ongoing. So how do you address that process so you're not declining and so you won't get sick again? That will be the ongoing part. So if you want to not decline, then it may be a good idea to do regular IV stem cells. That will keep your body at a position, at a point where it's more youthful and is more vibrant. And that has been demonstrated in studies on animals. When they actually can test longevity in animals, stem cells has been shown to promote or prolong lifespan by about 30% across the board. Not just lifespan, but health span. So who cares if they live longer and they're hanging on? But these rats and mice, they look younger, their furs are shinier, their spine is straighter, they're running around and, faster and more effectively. And they're also thinking more, they're smarter, so they can run through the maze better. So everything is better. And when they dissect their muscles and their brain, all the markers of cellular aging and decline have been reversed. So you literally can see the cells were functioning at a younger state. And thus the whole organism is a younger organism. Yeah. So that's something that you can do to reverse the aging process. But if you fix something, as long as you remove the causes of the disease, let's say somebody has rheumatoid arthritis. So we can help the person do really well. But if you don't remove what's causing the disease, whether it's genetic, because sometimes we may not be able to do much with that. It may be environmental toxicity, a gut imbalance, right? Hormone imbalance. And then if you don't address some of these underlying issues or nutritional deficiency, then you're always going to get back, or your body has a tendency to get back to where it was. So that's why we need a holistic approach. Instead of just giving you something and let you lose, we really need to figure out how can we optimize you so you will never get back to where you were before.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, people will get certain procedures done and then not make the changes to help sustain the procedure and literally get things back, right? So, yes, now that you have these stem cells in your body and you've healed or whatever it does, I think most people kind of revert back to the old ways instead of taking the opportunity to optimize themselves and go, okay, I have this great opportunity to continue on a healthier lifespan by doing more things, being active, eating healthier, getting rid of the toxins, getting rid of the crappy foods, all of those things. So I think like you said, the holistic approach or the mindset too must be there. You talked about working with some older men. What for the men who come in 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe 30s, what are they generally getting the stem cells from you from? Is there any is there something that they're always coming
There's
out?
a
They
lot of
keep coming back.
musculoskeletal issues. People have bad knees, bad
Oh, okay.
shoulder, bad back.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the most common. There are, others who just want to stay young. And it actually surprises me. I see more men are using stem cell therapy to stay young, to maintain this, that for anti-aging purposes than women. It's really interesting. So I was in our clinics, the husband and the wife was like, well, you do it first and I'll see what happens. But, yeah, once in a while we have erectile dysfunction. Also people want treatment there or hair restoration. So that's, yeah, but majority is, musculoskeletal issues.
Okay, that which makes sense to me because that's generally what most guys, as we're getting older, all of that stuff starts to creep up, whether it's something that's happened then or like I was a professional athlete in two sports. So years and I mean, this injury from my back was something specific that I was doing, but being an athlete for, at the highest level in two different sports, those things start to accumulate as you get older. And back, when I was in my 20s and teens and, late 30s, I wasn't doing, mobility and range of motion stretching and all that stuff. I was, and specifically nutrition, like I was carrying on like a crazy athlete because I could get away with it, but now it's creeping up on me. So that does make sense that does happen. So what are the pricing? What's the pricing? Because I know that I had someone else on my podcast before and he's saying it's going to be 10 grand. Like I want to be realistic for people who are listening because this sounds extremely promising and it's exciting. And, for there to be something that a solution, to help us start to regain back our life, really. Cause a lot of us are just like under, stress all the time, physically, emotionally, etc. To be able to have this is fantastic. What's the pricing for something like this?
Yeah, it's definitely not cheap, but it's not exorbitant either. I thought that I was expensive until I watched this documentary called Unnatural Selection on Netflix about gene therapy. And so something developed by Big Pharma and it's one injection, right? But they charge $750,000. So I thought, wow, that's a little exorbitant. When you leave it up to big pharma, they need to recoup their investment, right? But when we're performing transplant, so the pricing is not in that caliber. So in general, if you're just doing a simple joint injection, which a lot of people do, which I do once in a great while, but I really want people to reap the benefit of IV infusion because you are rejuvenating your entire system, including your immune system. And that's going to help you heal everything, including the problem you're targeting. And we can always target that local issue specifically by injecting more cells in that area. But once in a while, we do just local injection. That starts at $5,500 in our clinic. So the general range of treatments, pricing is between 5,000 to 50,000 either in the US or overseas. So like in some of the famous overseas clinic, $35,000, that's not uncommon. So in our clinic, we actually, our pricing, it's pretty good. I want to make it reasonable. I want to make it accessible. So if you do an IV infusion of stem cells, depending on how much cells you need, whether or not you're adding other local injections, it starts at $8,500 and it can go all the way up. You've add all kinds of things, it may add up all the way to 20,000. So it depends. But if you don't add that much, if you just do IV infusions, most people it's between 8,500 to about 16,000. So that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, this is something that has a lot of research science behind it, a lot of actual proof that it works,
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
like
I want
it's
to mention,
effective.
you mentioned pricing.
Yes,
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. At our clinic, when
no problem.
people don't have resources, they show us their previous year's tax return, we give them
Okay.
significant discounts. And we also accept
Okay.
care credit, which will pay for the treatment. And then you can slowly, pay it off over
Right
a
on.
long period of time, maybe a year or so. So we have all those options for people.
That's really good. The fact that people can pay it off is important because it takes away a barrier for a lot of people, right? Because having 5,500 specifically in today's economy, I'm Canadian, so for me that's like $10,000
No.
Canadian as opposed to 5,500 US. So for us, it yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So having some a way of like taking a barrier off for people to really and truly get something to help them live longer, live happier, live more pain free. I love the fact that you're doing that. Um, so as another one question I want to ask you, I know that you have your own skincare health stuff, like health supplements, right? I know we're talking about stem cells, but is that anything to do with stem cells or?
Yes, has stem cells in it. It came
Okay,
from my
okay, okay.
dietitian. I tell people, I said, I don't even care if anybody buys this cream because I need it for myself. And that's really why I create it.
Exactly. Oh
I'm
my
going to
God.
just make it for myself. If you want it, I'll sell it to you, but I don't care if you don't want it.
Yeah, I'm
Because,
so happy you said that. I'm so happy you said that. Sorry to interrupt because when I create my supplements, I have a supplement line, Funk Supplements.
uh-huh.
I'm creating another supplement line. I only generally created a supplements for me. I created because there was no real good protein powder, so I created a
Yeah,
really high
got
quality
it.
protein powder, and then I started to create other supplements for myself and my wife. And of course, I'm going to sell them to people in my membership. But like people realize that no, I'm getting these supplements. I'm creating so that I can have my own supplements that I have created, that I know what's in it, that
Yes,
I kind of sign off on. And if you want to buy
exactly.
it, go for it. But I'm just
Right.
telling you, like, I'm not going to use something I don't use. So I love that you just said that. It's like, yeah, if you want to buy it, buy it. But
I know.
keep
It's
it.
so funny. I was like, I can't stop this because I need it. So, so what happened was that I was, being in the anti-aging field, knowing the toxic, kind of what's in the environment, what's in our food and everything. I'm vigilant about what I put in my body or on my body. And I know the skin is highly absorbent, and is the most absorbent organ in the body. And if I put all these synthetic ingredients, and we know so many of these ingredients interrupt your hormone and cell function. So why would I do that? Why do I want to poison my body? Not just my face, but my everything inside of me. So I went on a search for something that's natural, that doesn't have these toxicity in it. And I had a hell of a time finding it, because at first I bought a really expensive Korean skincare product, everything Korean, right? It's all the rage. And I thought that I'm safe because they said it's all natural. But then after using it for a couple months, and I didn't really see that much difference. And then when I flip over the bottle and I realized, oh my God, what's that? What's this? So it wasn't all natural the way they claim it. And then I went to Natural Expo, which is really fun, like conference, right? Everything natural is in there, including skincare. So I would grab a few samples that were supposed to be all natural. And then I don't get to them until like a month or two later. So when I actually say, okay, I'm ready to use this, finally, I'm ready to try this. And they're separated into different layers already. So it's a layer of yellow, one layer of brown. I was like, what's going on in this cream? Of course I can't put it on my face because I don't know what happened to it. And I was like, why can't people keep it stable? Like what it's natural, but I don't know if it went bad. So that's what made me want to just make the cream. I thought, what if I just put the best herbs that's good for skin, and everything that I know are phenomenal into this cream. On top of it, I'm going to put the stem cells, and I'm going to put some peptides, some powerful peptides. So I'm just going to make this concoction that I know are just supercharging the skin. And we put in some antioxidants too, and uh, prebiotics to help nourish the microbiome on the skin. So that's the concoction. And that has been a hit, actually. People absolutely love it and begging me, please don't stop, because we ran out of stock for one of the product. We only have two types out of one, and people kept asking, when is it going to be back? When is it back? They're just waiting and waiting. Yeah, so I'm kind of obligated to people who just absolutely love the product. Yeah, so I have to get it made.
Keep going. Yeah, that's me and my protein. My protein it's expensive, but people know the difference between my
Mm.
protein because of the digestion, how they feel, stevia sweet, non-GMO, all that stuff. But just the digestion part is the big thing with protein, because most proteins, it's just people feel unsettled, or they got the protein farts or whatever it is. But ours is so clean, but it is very expensive to make, and the
Oh,
margins are not very big. So I have my guys who are like, come on, man, just bring it back. It's like, God, you guys don't know how.
it's a lot
Listen,
of
I
work.
know I need to use it too. It's a lot of work. It's expensive, but it's worth it. Listen, I want to have you back on to talk about
Oh, just
peptides,
to mention, if
but
people are interested, the
yeah,
name of the cream is called Chara Omni. So Chara Omni. Yeah.
CharaOmni. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask you to give everybody your handles, but I do want to have you back on to talk about peptides, if that's okay. Because that's another big thing that people are really moving to. They hear about BPC 157, they hear about TL 100, I think it's called, or T
TV
100,
500.
T
Yeah.
T500, right, and other peptides too. So let's definitely talk about that. But I really appreciate you being on. Leave us with one thing that we should think about when it comes to stem cell therapy, if you can, and then give us all of your handles. Where can we find Dr. Joy Kong?
I want to tell people, count yourself lucky that you live at this time, that we actually have this available. In your parents' generation, everything before that, nobody had access to anything like that can reverse their aging process like this. I mean, this is really exciting. In the past, I know in different countries, kings and queens and emperors, they were sending people out to places to find the fountain of youth. No one ever found it, right? And all the emperors and queens and they all aged and died. So, but now you don't have to be rich. You don't, super rich or have to be a king or queen. You have access. You can stay youthful and prevent the disease process, because the aging process is the most correlated with disease process. So stay ahead of the game and use something this revolutionary, and just give it a try. And so I want to encourage people and allow them to see that this is not, oh, so expensive. No, you're so lucky is actually here. So yeah, that's my parting words.
That's amazing. I love it. And I definitely need to come and see you. I mean, for the last 4 or 5 years, all my listeners, all my members, I have over like 10,000 members. Anyone who knows me on YouTube, they know that I've been talking about how bad my back is. I got some shoulder issues, but they know, like they know. So it would be great to come down, get this stem cell, the IV, whatever it is, and then come back better than ever. That would be awesome. Great
Oh,
testament.
I'm very, very optimistic for you.
Thank you. Now, tell us how we can reach you. What are your handles, your website, and where's your clinic as well?
The clinic is in Los Angeles. So the website, people can look at my personal website, which is joycongmd.com, or they can get on my Instagram. They want to reach me is Dr_Joy_Kong. And then I have my YouTube channel, which is just Joy Kong MD. I have a lot of videos. Actually, some doctors, I think they're learning from me, right? It's free, just by watching my videos, learning how to do stem cell therapy. And I tell most of my patients have watched everything on my YouTube before they even come to see me, because they went down the rabbit hole with me. It's a great source of information if people are interested. And I didn't even mention, so I have a book too. I wrote a memoir called Tiger of Beijing. So if anybody's interested, I came to this country when I was 20 years old, and the first chapter of my book was visa rejection. And it's about what do you do when people are stopping you from your dream. So it's a very interesting kind of novel-like story. It's all real because I lived it every day, which much more relevant. And yeah, so that's on Amazon. I think it's just a good read, and people are going to enjoy it. It's only about 3 years of my life, how I made it to the US and how I survived. And I ran into some challenges.
For sure. Yeah, no, I'm happy that you were able to come in and flourish like you have. Thank you so much for being here. You can also go to Chara-Health, chara-health.com as well. I think that's
That's my
one of your
clinic.
one of
Yes.
yeah, and I do advise anyone listening to this or watching this to go to Dr. Kong's YouTube channel, because yes, I started to go down the rabbit hole when I just clicked on one, and the next thing you know, I'm 3 deep, and I'm like, what the? So lots of great information. Specifically, if you want to learn more about stem cells, I mean, we're talking to the Stem Cell Doctor of the Year, the Doctor of the Decade, 2021. And I really appreciate you being on the podcast. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get you back on to talk peptides soon.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you so much, Funk. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, really enjoyed it.